Welcome to another edition of the official Catchup. We are back, and it's a new season of Lower League football in Scotland. And I'm joined by Chris, who has a camera.
Yeah, much better than the one I had previously. I've been kind of unseen the last sort of few episodes, but I'm actually a wee bit uncomfortable with the quality of it. It does look more decent than the last one, so the ugly mug everywhere basically. But no, I'm looking forward to the season ahead. Obviously, not just for the tier 5, but tier 6, 7, 8. How many does it go down to tier 10 now, Ben?
I think tier 9. I
9.
think it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, certainly a lot to talk about in terms of obviously the football coming up. Obviously, had the end of the season, which passed by with Trinent getting promoted to the Lowland League through the playoff after beating Darvel and St Cuthberts. What do you make of Trinent's chances then, Chris?
I don't rate them as well as other people's. I know a lot of people think they will be right up there. Not to say they won't be up there. I just don't think they're going to be in like a title challenge or that. I think Trinent are a really good club. They've got a really good manager in Callum Elliott. They've got really good players. They brought in sort of Mango Bar, obviously, from Kenbeef, as he's known, a really good experienced defender. But
Mango Bar? What's he
that's what he's known as, Craig Bar.
Because there's absolutely nothing worse than pundits using nicknames for football players.
I just know him as that.
Can't deal with it.
So Craig Bar.
We're nipping that in the bud now on this podcast because I can't allow that to happen on this podcast. So Craig Barr, Mango's his nickname, but we'll call him Craig Barr for the purposes of professionalism, right?
But anyway, good signing that experienced. I think they do have a bit of money that I know of. Probably won't be spending it like other clubs, but I really think they'll be a solid outfit in tier 5 going forward. I don't think they're going to completely go for it this season in terms of how other teams have, i.e. East Kilbride, Berwick Rangers. But I think they'll do well. I think I would have to check my predictions. I should have probably done that before we got on. I think I'd certainly have them top 8 or top 6. So I do think they'll do well. I just don't think they'll be at the very, very top.
Yeah, but an interesting one. They obviously handled themselves really well against a side like Darvel, which I know are a great side. And I just wonder what the step up will be like for them in their first season. Certainly, I think they'll be capable enough to stay up. I don't think there'll be any danger of relegation by any stretch of the imagination. But yeah, I'm not too sure that they're some people have kind of suggested top 4, top 3, things like that. But I don't see that myself. I think probably comfortably mid-table, and then push on next year. And maybe make themselves a bit of a force in the Lowland League. Moving on then to the team that were relegated from League 2, more affectionately known as Club 42, Cowdenbeath. What do you make of Cowdenbeath's chances?
Cowdenbeath, I have obviously followed their transfers because it's kind of what I do behind the scenes. They have lost a lot of, I guess, their major. Harvey Swan, for example, going to Spartans, he was always a bit of a mainstay at Cowdenbeath. It was a bit odd seeing him in Spartans colours and not in Cowdenbeath when I saw them in pre-season. We obviously mentioned Craig Barr going to Trinent, Liam Buchanan going to Berwick Rangers. So there has been their more experienced players going to other either tier 5 clubs or wherever else. But they have... I wouldn't say I've been overly impressed with their signings. Not to say they've not signed good players. I mean, there's a couple of guys like Daniel Martins that they signed from Gretna. I think he done really well in a struggling Gretna side. But anything above mid-table, I'd probably be optimistic. I don't think they're going to be right at the bottom, but I certainly don't think they're going to be at the top. I think it's going to be they use it too much. We use this term too much and I hear it too much in football, but it will be a transitional season, and I think transitional will definitely be mid-table. That's probably what their aim is, just to see how it goes, and then I don't even know if they'll go for it and then the years to come. You never know, though. You never know.
Yeah, I think if you look at the likes of Berwick and East Stirlingshire who have came down from League Two already, they use that kind of time as I say I know it's a cliche, but the transition kind of period of time, and they try and kind of probably regroup and kind of realign the football club to be able to go and do it, because I think that's you see that from Berwick, and certainly I'm impressed with what Berwick do off the park, and they've took that time in the Lowland League to do that, and I think that'll stand them in good stead, kind of on the park for years to come. So if Cowdenbeath can do that, I think they've got the support there behind them already that hopefully will continue to stick with them, and who knows, maybe a year or two they're maybe going to be back heading towards the top. But yeah, it'll be an interesting season. Obviously with the pyramid and the teams being able to come down and go up and things like that as well. Now it makes a massive difference, I think, to especially teams obviously in tier 6 who have got that kind of aspirational challenges to go up. It's good to have that, and I think that's something we've always been canvassing for. Yeah, we can talk about increased promotion and relegation all day, but let's not dwell on these political things that we always talk about. Let's just concentrate on the football, but it's certainly something else that we want to see. But in terms of then the Lowland League, then Chris, who do you have? Do you think who will challenge this season?
I think everyone knows our favourites. We've not had a pod, but obviously we've been asked. I think we both agree. I think there's a lot of people that agree that East Kilbride, on paper, certainly have the strongest team. The transfers they've made, the players they've brought in, really high quality. Obviously, SPFL experience. A couple, and I'm not talking just experienced players. Obviously, guys like Ronan Hughes from Hamilton Accies. That's a really good young player that probably could still be playing higher up. You kind of sometimes look and say, "Oh, why is he coming to East Kilbride? He could probably be playing Championship level, League One, League Two, or whatever." But I guess it shows the ambition from East Kilbride. Obviously, new manager Kevin Rutkowitz, obviously, probably building on. In fairness to what Chris Aitken done last season, obviously it was a wee bit of a shock to see him leave, because I think East Kilbride really picked up. They had I guess a poor start under his brother Stephen, but or Stevie, I should say. Stephen's his Christian name, surely, but but I'm fairly confident that East Kilbride are. I know we get a lot of stick, or certainly myself gets a lot of stick, because it does feel like the last sort of 3-4 years I've said East Kilbride consistently. But that's the way I read it. I look at the teams and think, I don't know if did I say they were favourites from Kelly in the league. I'm not sure, but either way, heavy favourites for me. We've already mentioned the other team that I think will do well. Obviously, Berwick Rangers. I think they'll be solid, and then you'll get your usual suspects, the Spartans. Trinent, as I said, I think will do well. I just don't think they'll be right up there. And then obviously, what's his name? Splosh. I think his team will do well.
Yeah,
Open Goal Broomhill, obviously, I think will they might be up there too. But for me, they're still missing a few parts, I guess.
Yeah, I think obviously East Kilbride one's probably an easy prediction in terms of you look at their summer. They always do good business in the summer. That's always the same with East Kilbride. And you look at their team on paper and you go like that. That team's going to win the league all day, and obviously it doesn't transpire into that. But I think you're right. I think this is probably their year. And you look at the league, they probably feel like they've probably got the best chance to win it. I think that the seasons before they probably had tougher competition to win that league or get promoted, certainly. So I think East Kilbride's a good shout. I'm going to be a bit controversial and say potentially one of the Colt teams will win the league.
I have two Colt, well, obviously 2 or 3 now. I have two of the Colt teams. You can guess which of the 2 I've got in, but I've certainly got them top 4, which is Celtic and Rangers, obviously in the top 4.
I'm not going to go as far out to say which one, but I think one of them will win the league. I genuinely believe that. And I think in true Lowland League fashion, it will stir up a whole controversy about that promoted team. Because obviously it's normally a champion club if it's one of the Colt teams win it. But certainly it could be interesting if that certainly did happen. So.
By the way, actually, it's a wee bit scary. I'm getting wee deja vu because the last time you made like a big prediction, it came true was when I think you said the league wouldn't finish during the COVID years, and
Oh, that's
you
right.
turned
That's
out to
right.
be
Yeah.
right. So, the Colts teams, a lot of people think obviously Rangers are a wee bit weaker, and it probably is a wee bit true in terms of they've loaned out the likes of Tony Weston and Alex Lowry and Leon King look like they're moving up to the first team, but the Rangers have signed a lot of good young players from around the SPFL. Obviously, Connor Young, we know, was on loan at Civil when he was 16, absolutely terrorising the league up front. So, Celtic are interesting. I actually think they're. I think I don't want to say can I say that as a Rangers fan? That I think they might be in a slightly better position simply because of their under 18s that are coming up that I'm familiar with, and I think they will have a good set of boys coming up as well. So a lot of people look at the two Colts teams and think they'll be weaker. I actually think they'll probably be around the same. Not saying that they were second and third last season. If they're around the same, they could potentially be set. Well, I've got them third and fourth, but so not too far off. I think they will be very high up the league again. I would imagine.
I think they'll be close. I don't know which one. I'm slightly. I don't want to put nail my colours to the mast because I'll just be called a fan of that team. So I'm not going to say which one I really think, because I probably don't actually know. But I think one of the Colts teams, because I think there was slight changes to the rules in terms of what Colts teams can do with their squad and stuff like that, and how they play the games. It's not going to be as a bit of a farce as it was last year, where games were getting postponed because of different things and all that kind of stuff. So I think it'll be interesting, certainly. But got to say, East Kilbride are one of the Colt teams to run it close at the top. Right, looking at the bottom of the Lowland League, who's your candidates for relegation or the playoff?
I hate picking on them because I feel like I've done that last year, even though Vale Leaving were obviously in the league. But certainly Edinburgh Uni, I think they had a really good season last season. Actually, credited them obviously, but they have lost a few players. Obviously, one of the players that we praised a lot was Innes Lawson. He's away to Strollers. I think they've lost a few other seniors. They won't possibly be as strong this year, and even us saying they had an incredible season last year, they were still kind of lingering down at the bottom as well. So I think they'll struggle. I think Edinburgh Uni will struggle. I think I'm a wee bit worried about Dalbeattie Star simply because I do believe that Jordan Williamson is an ambitious manager. He's done wonders with St Cuthberts. But just the fact that it was a whole squad clear out pretty much. Obviously, a lot of them jump into the west of Scotland with Freve. A lot of the players. They've lost some players to south of Scotland as well, and other teams. Gretna, I think, took obviously Russell Curry and Jack Dickinson, who were both brilliant players for Dalbeattie last season. So it's hard to judge Dalbeattie Star at the moment because I've not seen. They've not really revealed too much in terms of their signings, which is probably concern in itself just before the weekend, before the league season starts. So I have faith in Jordan Williamson. Obviously, I did put out a wee tribute to Star and say I do think he will be the guy to push them forward. But I think this, again, we use that word transition. I think it might be a transitional season. Get a feel of managing a higher league up and get a feel of Dalbeattie, and we'll see how they go. But certainly Edinburgh Uni and Dalbeattie at the moment, I would say, are my two,
I think I'm going to go with Gretna 2008. I've not seen. Yeah, you mentioned Russell Curry, good signing, good forward. Certainly one I know was a few teams were sniffing about this year, but I've not seen anything from Gretna last year, and I haven't seen anything from them in terms of the squad that they're building to say that they'll improve a great deal. So I think for me, Gretna probably the concern. Because I think the thing about the uni teams is you don't really know what the uni team squads look like because you're kind of waiting for the players to turn up for for uni, if you like, So you never know what you're going to get out of the squads at this point in time. So I'm reluctant to say anything about either of the uni teams because I think they could have a few gems in there and then that can make the difference. So I'm going to go with Gretna. Apologies to Johnny Needs, I'll need him, he'll be listening, but I'll certainly eat my words if it doesn't come true at the end of the season.
Based on their signings, I've actually been quite impressed with who they've brought in. I think they're training again. I think that's the issue before they weren't training. I believe they are now, so that's a big advantage, obviously, for any team that's together. Yeah, I'm very surprised at that. I've actually got Gretna kind of just below mid-table, maybe. So yeah, I'm quite surprised at Gretna being. Yeah, we'll see how it pans out. I guess
it goes. Right. Well, just before we move on to the Lowland League, we've got to talk about the team on everyone's lips. Open Goal Broomhill FC, aka Slosh's new team. For context, if you haven't watched the Broomhill podcast, where Kevin Kyle mentions Moza, and he calls him Slosh instead of Moza. So fuck knows why he gets that name, but it was quite funny. I was watching this afternoon. I thought I thought about Moza and realised it was him. But yeah, would you make of the whole Open Goal Broomhill thing then, Chris?
I have mixed feelings on it. I think we might have talked about this in private, obviously. Obviously, Moz is in our chat. I didn't want to grass him up or get him in trouble, but I think positively, I think it's good. I think Cy Ferry is a very determined young coach, manager, whatever you. I actually like the concept. I do feel, though, if it goes south, which to think they have more pressure than any other team in this league. I don't care if
absolutely
about ambition. The reason being is because they're going to be on camera every week. You're going to apparently hear Cy Ferry going to be going through players. It's going to be on social media. The following's massive, so it's not just going to be a non-league people saying, "Oh, Broomhill, blah blah blah." It's going to be most of Scottish football saying, "Well, non-league opinions aside, when you've got a whole country or a whole football fan base, criticising you or praising you or whatever, it can be difficult to juggle that for players that, let's face it, a lot of these players will not be used to that level of scope or attention. I know we've done our part, obviously, with praising players and stuff like that, but it's nothing compared to Open Goal and with thousands of followers and whatever else. And I think that adds pressure to them. I don't rate them as highly as some others. I do think they're missing an out-and-out striker. Jamie Semple, I really rate him. Actually, I did watch a wee bit of the latest podcast. I don't want us to be reactionary to them, but obviously, the first podcast I thought was interesting, and I've not seen it all, to be fair, but I did find it interesting what Kevin Kyle said about Jamie Semple, like, this young forward looks great and stuff like that. I was a wee bit surprised at that because, I've known about Jamie Semple for about 4 years when he was at Motherwell. And I do find it sometimes like, it's maybe because it's the scouting in me. Like, I know about these players, and obviously I do the research for non-league, so I kind of have to know about players. But I do find it surprising. I do think there is a bit of a lack of maybe knowledge of the level there within Open Goal. They were getting quite excited about 400 people turning up at their games, and that's really good. No disrespect, but Kelty, Bonnyrigg, some teams do average that, especially in the west of Scotland, even more than that. So yeah, it's like, the knowledge for me isn't there yet, but certainly I think in terms of the positive things, I think they can put a good light on it. But I think it can go the other way. There's two ways of looking at it. It can either be really positive, great, or it can be, I think it's if you're talking about a grey area, I think Broomhill are certainly the grey area in Scottish football for me.
Yeah, I think obviously it comes with a lot of kind of controversy and a lot of kind of the football purists are kind of against it because it's new, it's a podcast, it's online, it's content, all that kind of stuff, which is the way the world these days, unfortunately, for those people. And I think, I can see where they're coming from, but with my media, my podcast, my football club hat on, I'm really intrigued to see how it goes because it's the kind of stuff I'm into. So I'm really here for it. I mean, I enjoy Open Goal. I mean, I do watch it week to week, pretty much. Don't not so much the one the Thursday, but the Monday night, the Monday ones I usually fairly enjoy watching. It's a good podcast, and I think you mentioned Cy Ferry's a manager. I think he's went away and he's learned his craft under Jim McNally at Peterhead, and obviously he had the opportunity to stay there and probably continue on and potentially take over as first team manager, but he decided to jump ship and take his own reins. And I think I had a chat about this the other day about Cy as a manager. I think obviously get my first Buffs mention of the new season, but we obviously Chris James left the club and we were looking for a new manager, and I think I said this at the time to a few people. And if Cypher had applied for that job, I think he'd have been a high caliber candidate in that application process. Obviously, he didn't, and we're just talking about kind of if buts and maybes. But certainly, I think he's a good coach. He seems to know what he's talking about when it comes to the footballing side of things and tactically and preparing for matches and all that kind of stuff, and the kind of the demands he sets in players. So it's certainly interesting to see how it'll go. Obviously, you've got Slaney come in to play as well, which again goes either way. I mean, he either comes back and he's still got the ability and the talent to offer something to the team, or he's hopeless and he'll be able to do it probably quite quickly. But I'm interested to see how that goes. And obviously, Moza, a good friend of ours, and he's been involved at Broomhill for a number of years, and we're glad to see he's sticking around there and being involved in the match day broadcasts like he was doing before, and he's going to be doing that alongside Kevin Kyle, which will be interesting as well for him to work with an established football player like Kevin Kyle. It's pretty cool for him, and obviously he's going to be involved in behind the scenes. And we also just awarded as well Michael Park had left Broomhill. I think for me, Michael is probably the best in the game in terms of media at this level, and even probably better than some of the teams up the league. Certainly, obviously Broomhill will have their own Open Goal of their own ideas, and I think Michael Boyd just felt a bit pushed out by that and decided to move on. But Michael won't be sitting on the sidelines for long. He'll be at a club. I know Scott McClyman at Kilmarnock has just left. Michael being a Kelly fan, I really hope he's in the run for that job, because I think he's more than capable of doing that job at Kilmarnock. But best luck to him, certainly from myself. And
well, Michael, I always credit Michael as being kind of the co-founder of the Catchup, because it was literally a conversation through DMs that myself and Michael had even before Moza was involved. Had sort of went with an idea, and then we're here 4 years later just still talking. So Michael's, I mean, he's not just that, he's the reason there is a lot of the early history of the Lowland League, because he was writing articles, he was doing stuff for the website when he was the league's media manager. So you could credit Michael for loads of things, and I agree. I hope he does get I don't know if it would be a full-time gig, but certainly a gig at a Kelly would be great, because, as you say, he is a Kelly fan.
Right, then that's pretty much the Lowland League covered. We'll move on to the East of Scotland first. Do you take that first, Chris?
Yeah, sure.
So, obviously, East of Scotland Football League was won by Trinent, which then obviously they got promoted. So, we'll be looking for, what's your thoughts then on a champion club from the East of Scotland Prem?
Linlithgow Rose. It's that easy for me. It's kind of a similar situation in the Lowland League, where I think East Kilbride have got the strongest team. I think Linlithgow Rose have got the strongest team there. I would love to see Crossgates Primrose do well. I think they've done really well last season, kind of higher up the league. I don't, obviously not, saying they're going for a title challenge, but as a Fife team, obviously I want them to see them do well. Dundonald Bluebell, under Stephen Husband, his first sort of season in charge, I think hopefully they'll do well. But yeah, on paper, it's that simple for me. Linlithgow Rose. I have been impressed with who Broxburn have brought in, to be honest. But Linlithgow are night and day, I think, for me in terms of above everyone else and in terms of favourites for that league, or certainly the Premier League anyway.
What do you make of Vale Leaving's chances?
I'm not actually sure about them, to be honest. I know I have noticed, obviously, some of the transfers they've made. I think it'll be hard. I think that Whitehill Welfare struggled heavily when they got relegated from the Lowland League, just because we can mention, obviously, a lot of people say the standard of the Lowland League gets improved every season, but certainly in the East and the West and wherever else, the standards they're trying to get to that point of the Lowland League, and you see a lot of teams coming into the Lowland League and being right up there. Obviously, Kelty Hearts, Bonnyrigg. So yeah, I think that I'd like to hope that Vale Leaving survive their first season, but I think it will be a struggle.
Yeah, I gotta agree with that. I think they'll be close to the bottom, but I think it'll be certainly close. I think they're probably in a dogfight and just try to survive, certainly this year. So we obviously hope they do be the next Lowland League side, but it's hard to predict. Elsewhere and across the east of Scotland, obviously we'll probably not go into too much detail around the first, second, and third divisions. But any other teams that stand out that you think will have a good season?
St. Jenna. I have to give them a shout out. I think Andy Rogers is still there. I think your mate, obviously. What's it, Jamie Finlay? I think he's still.
I've closed it. I've closed the fan club for James Finlay because he signed for St. Jenna. He had the chance. I believe he had the chance to sign for Cowan, but he opted to go second division East of Scotland rather than the West of Scotland Prem. It's hard to take. I'm closing. In fact, I need to create new fan clubs for the new season for some new players because my fan clubs have been shut down. Certainly, but yeah, I think I agree with being Sagenta. They've also got a bad dough behind them. They're spending money. They're signing good players like James Finlay, Andy Rogers, etc. And I think they'll do well in the second division, certainly of the East of Scotland, and they'll be quick to get up and hopefully get through the leagues.
We'll have to just a wee shout out to Hart Hill Royal. Obviously, they jumped from the west to the east, which is I think that's the first time that's happened. So we've now had the south team jump to the west, and but I think that is the first time an east team has jumped to. Well, I suppose Dunny Pace earlier back in the day they were West Juniors, weren't they? And they kind of jumped to the east. So, but yeah, I think that's always interesting when teams jump to different. We saw it with obviously Bonnyton as well. They jumped from the south to the West Premier when it was established. So, we'll see how they do. Obviously, we'll keep an eye on all the hope. Well, it's too much to keep an eye on, but we'll try our best. We really will. Just before you obviously get into the other leagues, obviously, Ben, I think it's a great thing. I think it's great that this is taken a long time, but the fact that teams are kind of at the level now is what should be like throughout the pyramid. And fair play to the East of Scotland and the West of Scotland leagues for doing this so fast. I know East of Scotland was kind of it was a build up, obviously, because of COVID. They kind of had to postpone it.
All right, then moving on to the South of Scotland Football League. There's one division there. Give us a prediction, Chris, for the South of Scotland.
I don't know. I honestly don't, because
hard, isn't it?
St Cuthbert's obviously Jordan Williamson moved on. I'm sure. I think he's had a few players move with him to Dalbeatty, no doubt. I'm still really unsure about Dalbeatty, as I said earlier. Lochar Thistle have made a few interesting signings. I don't know. My knowledge, I must admit, isn't as great with the South of Scotland compared to other leagues. Obviously, I think that the interesting one there is I think it could probably be an open league this season, and there could be a few teams that are going for it. It's certainly something that I need to probably apart from transfers and obviously players that I already know that play in this sort of region or went from the likes of St Cuthberts to a Lockhart, Lucar Thistle, or whatever it was. I think we need to have more of a look at the south of Scotland to boost our knowledge there.
Yeah, I think you'd have probably said three of the team to win it. If you were looking at a team, but obviously three moved to the West of Scotland. Dave's obviously seen benefit moving to I think tier 9 or 10 of the West of Scotland, and starting at the very bottom of the West of Scotland League. So they've seen that as an opportunity for them. So fair play to them. But yeah, I think it's a very open league. I think if St Cuthberts had still had Jordan in charge and had the players from last season, I think they'd have been more than capable of doing that again. I think the other one, maybe Mid Annandale, look quite strong. They've always seemed to do all right in cup competitions against kind of stronger sides as well. So I think you're right. It's a very, very tough league to call for sure. All right, then moving on to the one we all want to talk about, the West of Scotland Football League. My favourite, of course, and one that I know probably enough about to get us kicked off. Obviously, we've had 3 teams promoted this season. We'll be playing in a 16 team division, which was obviously the intention to get to 16 by relegating 7 last year into the first division. So you've got Arthurlie, Cambuslang, and Petershill have came up who won all the conferences. As we mentioned before, they're obviously aligned then to have a Premier Division, a First Division, a Second Division, and a Third Division. Plus a Fourth Division, obviously the Development Division as well, which has obviously got some new teams in it too. Okay, I'm going to go straight away with my prediction for the league. Obviously, everyone knows this by now. I've got a hell of a bias towards Colin and Rangers. It wouldn't be right for me to not have that. But I think from our perspective, our side's looking quite good. Obviously, we've brought in a new manager just before the end of last season. We've brought in at count, I think, 12 new players. So we're probably in that, again, coming back to that cliche of transitional period, certainly. But what I've seen so far, fairly happy with it. The players are decent. Got Big Dylan Mackin up front. We signed the boy Robbie Torrance from Rossvale, centre half, who looks really good. Craig Gordon, the goalie from Rossvale as well, another good looking player. And Mark Lamont from Broomhill. That's before you mentioned Chris Miller, Kevin Nichol.
I was waiting for it. I was waiting for that one.
I mean, Chris Miller's what, 39, and he plays like a 25-year-old. Like, he's unbelievable, super fit. Probably, if you're going to say anything negative about him, he probably lacks a bit of pace, but his game intelligence and his experience means he doesn't actually need that in the game. He just knows when to take the right touch and make the right pass. He looks a player for us, and a great bit of work by Gorms to get him in. Kevin Nichol, another one, very experienced centre mid from Clyde. Brought in Connor Bolger from Neilston, which he's a winger. Was in the division below before, and he's come up and looks quite nippy. He's got a bit about him as well, which it's all exciting. Obviously, we've kept a few players from last season, and Gavin Miller, Thomas Collins, Kieran Woods, Alden El Zubedi, Lewis Gardner, Ben Lewis, Jordan Stewart. So probably the better players that we had last season are stuck around, and the guys obviously come in and look like they're going to be more than capable. But in terms of the league, I think we'll be up there. Absolutely, no doubt about it. I think we'll be close. But I do believe that Darvel will win the league. I think that squad that they have, the depth that they have, and the ability they have on the park is just going to be too much for teams over the stretch.
Shocking. See, for all that build up of the buff stuff, I thought you were going to put your head out in the line and say we're winning it all. Get it up you for the rest of the teams. But no, I think you're right. I kind of called it early, but I don't see the league going much differently. than it did last season. I think it'll probably be between Darvel and Auchinleck Talbot for me. I think the quality that Darvel have, and they've just improved upon it. It's just mental for that. They'd probably be high up. And we often say that about the really top East of Scotland or West of Scotland teams, but they'd probably be high up in a Lowland League. They'd be high up in League Two. Darvel, the quality that Darvel have, I mean, it's very difficult to not see them as favourites. But then again, I don't think you can count out Auchinleck Talbot. I really don't. It's just by all standards, last season people might say, "Oh, they never had a good season." I mean, they still won, the Junior Cup, the South Challenge Cup. They're a team that wins things, and there's not many sort of barren years for Auchinleck Talbot, for winning things, especially under, Tommy Sloan. So
yeah, absolutely. I think you can't discount Talbot. Absolutely, I think a good bunch of players. They've kept that squad together from last season. They've brought in a couple of bodies in Chris Stafford and Lewis Crawford, who were, I think, on loan and came in towards the end of last season, and they signed the boy from Morton's, Ross Taylor, I think it was.
yeah, Ross, right back.
Yeah.
I had to actually in fact, I can't really grasp him, but I had to ask I had to ask a former teammate of his about him actually, because
Right.
yeah,
He was at Kilburnley last year by all accounts.
Yeah, I think he
On
was.
loan.
It was definitely on loan at a West team. I think you're right. I think it was Kilburney. In fact, no, it was because I saw them play against Caledonian Braves in one of the cup competitions. Yeah, but yeah, I was asking one of his former teammates of Morton about him when I noticed that Talbot had signed him. So because it was a position thing, because I always thought he was a right-sided player, but at Kilburney, I think he was playing on the left. It was that sort of thing. Like, so is he right-sided or left-sided?
Right,
Or
yeah.
yeah, so you know,
It'll be certainly interesting to see how Auchinleck do, how they bounce back, because as you say, they're no strangers to winning things. I'm sure they'll go on another Scottish Cup run in terms of the Scottish Cup plus the Junior Cup. They're playing that as well. So they've done well in the South Challenge Cup. They'll probably do all right in the Command Pie Cup as well, which is obviously the League Cup. So I don't imagine Auchinleck will be shy of winning a few trophies. But I think for me, the top probably 4 or 5 teams are all going to be probably fairly similar to last season in terms of Darvel, Auchinleck, Co-winning, Pollock, Clydebank. I think the one that I'll say that now will be maybe a surprise package, maybe not a surprise package, but can return to form will be Cumnock. I certainly think that the business they've done this season looks pretty good. Obviously, Brian McGinty came in and pretty much saved them from relegation. They were in a kind of a bit of a shit spot in terms of the 17 relegation spots, and Brian managed to pull them right out of that and kind of got them to finishing top 7 in the end. So I wouldn't be shocked to see them build on that elsewhere. Probably looking at Glenafton. They obviously brought Ryan Stevenson and Mark Roberts into the mix just before the end of the season as well. They've brought in a few players. Paul Payton, I think, has come in. I know he's saying that Adam Caldwell from us as well at right back. But I'm not seeing massive amounts of them to say that they'll improve a great deal. They were kind of on the edge mid-table, obviously, last year because of the relegation. They were right in the bottom of the relegation fight for a long time, and probably just get by in the skin of their teeth. I think they got away with one in terms of the whole debacle around Blantyre fielding, 7 players, and then one player got injured and the game got abandoned because it was the same night as the Rangers Europa League final, and there was nobody available to play, and Glenafton had a squad, so they played the game, and it all was a bit of a farce. But it'll be interesting to see in terms of at the bottom then of the West of Scotland Premier Division. Obviously, we're looking for 3 teams to go down. We mentioned already Cambuslang, Petershill, and Atherley came up. Who do you think will be in that bottom 3 bracket at the end of the season, Chris?
I actually think that's harder to judge. By the way, I really, in terms of the West, I mean the teams that came up obviously are Arthurlie. were invincible last season. You
Yep.
know, which is an incredible achievement, no matter what level of football. I noticed they recently obviously changed manager because of work commitments and stuff like that. So,
Aye, that was strange. See that just when you mentioned that there. So they that was just I think it was Tuesday or Wednesday night. I think they Tuesday
yeah,
night. I think they changed the manager. They announced the starting lineup for the friendly, and then within about 10 minutes of that being put out, they announced that the manager was leaving, and then 10 minutes into the match, they announced the new manager was the old assistant or the old coach or something. It was a
yeah.
weird sequence of events certainly, and I thought it was a wee bit strange, but
I
yeah, I
never
think
went. I never went unnoticed, but yeah, no. Out of the three, I would probably say Peters Hill probably would be the one that I would be looking at, probably lower than them two. But the teams that are in there, I was thinking maybe obviously my beloved Largs Thistle. I was thinking they might struggle this season, but I mean Will Sewell obviously left to go to Stenhouse Muir. But what did they do? They signed three strikers to replace him, or however many forwards it was. I remember Liam Coogan's signing, who I don't know how he got away with this, but I'm pretty sure he played for about 5 teams last year. So I don't know. He was at St Roch's, and
he bounced about a bit. Yeah,
it was. I don't know if he actually played. To be fair to
he was
Liam,
at
but
Lowland, and then I think Hurlford, I think as well, wasn't that? I'm sure.
and then he was out on loan as well. It was a very strange one trying to keep up with his player history. But yeah, I really can't call it at this moment in time. I've obviously my focus tends to be on when it's tier 6, for example. I'm probably looking more at the top end than I am at the bottom end, and at the moment I don't know who I would go for in terms of actually being relegated.
Yeah, I think for me, I think Cambuslang Rangers, Peters Hill. I'm kind of on the fence about Arthurlie. Um, I was talking about Urban Meadow. Not seen an awful lot of them. I know that's going to cause a lot of controversy, but I think the thing for me about I'm not going to see Urban Meadow because I think if Urban Meadow start poorly, they will get rid of the manager and bring in a better manager with the management duo that they have in place just now. So for that reason, I don't think Urban Meadow will get relegated certainly. So maybe Rob Roy. I know they struggle a bit for fans and things like that at Cumbernauld Hall, and playing on that surface at Cumbernauld is not conducive to great football. It's quite a short park as well, and I think he done well last year. Certainly, again mid table, but you look at the division this year and teams like Glenafton and Troon and Pollock, etc. Darvel, Cumnock, Clydebank, they're all going to be way above Rob Roy, and I just feel like they're a step below. So I'm going to say Rob Roy's my third team. But obviously, it depends. Obviously, what happens within the Lowland League and who comes down and stuff like that. It depends who gets how many teams get relegated. There might only be 2 get relegated, depending on obviously the situation with that and as well. So
One thing I will say about the West, though, the West Premier and Division 1, cracking leagues.
First division, I'm just going to come on to that.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to go into too much detail about the other divisions, but I think the first division, given the teams that have been relegated, obviously 7 went down from
Yep.
from the Prem. Obviously, that was Benbar, Blantyre, Bonnet, and Cumbernauld, Kilburney, Rossvale, Rutherglen. Obviously, that's coupled with the likes of St Cadoc's, Johnston Borough, Gartcairn, Drumchapel, who look like decent sides. Shotts, St Roch's, Thornywood, Whitlets, and Nielsen, the other sides in that division. So, yeah, I think you're right. I think the first division is going to be a tough league to call. However, I think I'm going to go with. I think an easy prediction St Cadoc's because obviously they've spent a lot of dough this year, and it's obviously it's clear from the guys that they're bringing in that they've got a lot of Premier Division quality players. But I think you look at like Benburb last season. Benburb were a good side and just obviously unfortunate to be dropped now because of the size of the relegation. Rutherglen probably another team that will be more than capable. Tommy Malloy's in at Kilburnley now, and he's been there for about a season, so he'll have obviously tried to keep his team up. But Kilburnley will be expected to challenge as well. But I think I'm going to go with Benburb. I think Benburb will have enough in the tank to do it.
Interesting, because for me, it's between St Cadoc's and Drumchapel for the title.
You're going for the money teams. You're just going to go pure money.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard not to, really, isn't it? I mean, most of it is to do with money, obviously. Drumchapel have amazing quality. One team I will give a wee shout out to, because I actually do think they have a good team. I don't know too much about them, but they always seem to do really well, is Shots. I don't know. They done really well last season. I don't know too much about their squad, in fairness. But yeah, that certainly did come out a lot of the fact that they were kind of, especially back when the West had conferences, they were always sort of in my eye line, if you will, with teams that were doing well. So I would like to see them to continue to do well, obviously. But they are kind of, first, it's going to be difficult, I think, and that especially with the Prem teams coming down.
Yeah, I think obviously with so many of those Prem teams, I think that makes it even more difficult for those teams that are obviously done well last year. But I think you're right. Shots are a good side. And elsewhere, then across the other divisions in the West of Scotland, anything else that stands out for you, Chris?
EK Thistle. I have to mention them for obviously bringing back Sean Winter back into the game. His retirement lasted maybe a month or something. No, it made sense to. He had too much of a good season at Cumbernauld Colts, to retire. I know he's saying that he's a the short fat man or whatever he calls himself. But Sean Winter is just a quality footballer, and I did feel like he had one season more in him, and I'm actually glad that he's kind of reunited with Baz Russell and Jamie Longworth and all the former sort of East Kilbride players. But I actually think they have a good team, EK Thistle, and I think they will do well in their division. I think it's a Division 3, so they have to be my favourites, and I'm probably looking to go and see them at some point as well for the Sean Winter fan club. I know we mentioned fan clubs. I'm certainly still a big part of that, and I don't know, maybe get a flag or something made for Sean. But no, EK Thistle will definitely be looking in with interest this season.
I think for me, just talking about the third division there, I think Ardrossan Winton Rovers will be a strong side this year. Gavin Friels is former Buffs assistant manager. He's a good coach in his own right. You can see he's building a good squad there. We played them in a friendly. Looked decent. We beat them 4-0, but in terms of what they're building there, I think they've got some good experience. I think like Liam McGuinness, they've got Kieran McLaughlin in there as well, who's capable and can change a game for them. So I think for me, Ardrossan Winton Rovers look like a good side, and that third division certainly gives them a bit of a chance to try and get up there, because there's probably not that many great teams in that third division. I think it's probably the one where you probably can look at it and go, you'd fancy yourself in this if you can build the right squad, and that's about it. Yeah, I think obviously the final division is the fourth division, which is the kind of development division where the new teams come in. It'll be interesting to see just a word for Eglin FC, which is a kind of another Cowan side, which have just built up from kind of the old Cowan Rangers amateurs team. So they are taking their place in the West Scotland fourth division. So
just a wee shout out to them because they actually recently followed the Catchup, because when I made the lists for all the leagues, I couldn't find their Twitter, so I'm assuming it was just like, "Hi guys, this is us. We've followed your list now. Please add us to it," sort of thing. So yeah, obviously they've now been added to the fourth division list.
And they're playing our under 20 side in a friendly tonight, and they're 1-1 so they are. So, but I think just a wee shout to them. But obviously we mentioned Threave as well. They obviously decided to take a place in the fourth division, which will be interesting to see how that goes. Allow them to go on a bit of a journey. So yeah, that fourth division will be interesting. It's a good opportunity for teams to obviously build on, becoming kind of moving away from the amateur and get into the pyramid and trying to build their way through and get some good matches and cups and things like that. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that goes, and I'm certainly looking forward to the season ahead.
We've probably covered way too much, Ben, but
Right, okay, so just circling back to the matches that are coming up this weekend. The Lowland League obviously kicks off. Silver Strollers versus Rangers B. Quick prediction, Chris?
oh God, you've caught me off guard there. I'll go with Rangers B.
So will
And,
I.
actually,
Nah, I'm going Rangers B. Rangers
I
B.
think Strollers. I'm sure, did Strollers not beat Rangers B last season?
Can't
I
remember.
may be forgetting that, but I'm pretty sure they had a decent record against them. And it is at Christy Gillis Park. I'm sorry, Strollers. I'll go with Rangers B.
Looking elsewhere, then we have Celtic B versus Cowdenbeath. That's one of the obviously the Lowland League new boys versus a Colt team. Should be interesting.
So another one for the B boys, I think. Celtic B. I'll go for.
And you've got Trinent versus East Kilbride. Obviously, Trinent, the new boys to the Lowland League after the playoff, and East Kilbride are champions elect, as it is. So, what do you make of that one?
I tell you what, it's a tough one. Beginning at Foresters Park, I think that if that's the game of the week, really, or that, or obviously Broomhill versus Spartans that we'll get to. But obviously I'm probably going to favour East Kilbride because I think they'll win their league. But that is a tough opening fixture, especially Trinent just been promoted. They'll be up for that game. They'll want to get an early scalp. I can't really talk. I do think East Kilbride have a weakness, but it would be unfair for me to point it out, considering I would probably have to do that for every team in the league going forward. Oh, I think, but they have one glaring weakness, I think, which I've spoken to you guys about. No doubt, Mozza's probably stooged it off to the Broomhill lads, but yeah, I noticed that obviously when I watched some of their friendlies and. I think they need to get that sorted. That I feel like I'm being total vague about it, but I think it's tough because I think Trinent are one of those teams that could probably exploit it without explaining it. But yeah, just on I'll go with East Kilbride begrudgingly at this early stage.
And the other one I want to talk about then, Open Goal Broomhill versus the Spartans. I think obviously for me, I'm going to go with the Spartans in this one. I think I'll just come a little bit too soon for Broomhill, but obviously wish them all the best and sloshing the gang over there.
Spartans, they have a couple of guys missing. Obviously, Reese Armstrong, I think, suspended. As is, I can't remember who else is suspended, but they have a couple of players missing. Reese Armstrong. The Spartans don't have a lot of goals from midfield other than Jamie Dishington, and if you maybe include Cammy Russell as a midfielder, but Reese Armstrong would have been the player to provide that. Bradley White, I think, has been really good pre-season. Gregor Woods has scored a couple pre-season. So if Spartans can actually provide more goals other than Blair Henderson, I think they would be one of those teams like East Kilbride where they can just get goals from anywhere. I know a lot of people gave Blair Henderson a lot of stick last season because he scored 4 or 5 against Vale even. I mean, he still would have been on 22, 23. He would have still been amongst the top scorers. So Blair can't run. I mean, he does all the work in the box. You know what I mean? He's a classic poacher, and it's hard for teams to stop Blair Henderson. I have noticed he does do a bit of the Harry Kane in terms of maybe setting guys up, setting back a wee bit. But if he's in the 18-yard box or in the penalty box, he's Blair Henderson is a top goal scorer, and it's something I think I mentioned earlier, but Broomhill don't have, in my opinion, at the moment. They don't have that type of Blair Henderson type player, and I think on the day, I think Blair Henderson will be the difference.
All right, elsewhere across the Lowland League, then it's Bonus United versus Cumbernauld Colts, Cali Braves versus Gala Fayardine Rovers, Dalbeattie Star versus Edinburgh Uni, Grant 2008 versus University of Stirling, Heart of Midlothian B versus Berwick Rangers. And that's the first games on the weekend, and it's followed up by games on the Wednesday night. So thick and fast for the Lowland League guys. And then we'll be back the following week with the West Scotland obviously kicking off in South Scotland and the East of Scotland. All right, well, that's another episode of the Official Catch-Up podcast over for another week. Chris, where do we find where's the usual social media details for anyone who hasn't followed us yet?
Well, you can find the Catchup at Official Catchup on Twitter. The Lowland League Catchup it's still on Facebook, and yeah, we're pretty much on everything now. We're on just type in Official Catchup. It's not whatever. I think sometimes people confuse us with the BBC thing, the catch-up telly or whatever. But yep, we're now on Audible as well. So this will be the first episode released on Audible, which is quite exciting. So yeah, we'll be now the season's starting. Hopefully, we'll get back into routine, be more regular. Certainly, it's at the moment it's just me and Ben, but I think we're open to having people on in that, Ben, and just it depends when our recordings are and whatnot. The pre-season really crept up on us fast, didn't it? Well, it didn't seem like much of a break, did it?
I think I was doing pre-season friendlies, and the next thing I know, I was about a week away from the league starting. So I definitely has, and looking forward to the competitive stuff starting. Obviously, from a co-winning perspective, I want to see how that unfolds and what's the plan for the season. But you can get me on Twitter at Mr. Ben Grant. That's the best place to send your hate and abuse to if you want to. But until next time, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you all soon.